Hello and welcome to Provoking Tech. I'm Zach, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about cloud gaming with Rainbow Six Siege. I had a couple of very good experiences with Rainbow Six Siege, notably the Paperspace P5000 tier streamed using Parsec, and also the brand new Shadow machine did very well in the benchmarks that I'm going to be talking about later in this video. So, without further delay, let's go ahead and jump right to it. To begin today's video, I wanted to talk about the graphical quality settings that I used to benchmark Siege for today's video. As you can see here, I used pretty much the Ultra preset, with the lone change being that I turned the render scaling from the default of 50 all the way up to 100. So outside of that, everything else is at the Ultra preset. As I mentioned in the intro, two cloud gaming services performed very well in today's benchmarks. That is the Paperspace P5000 series machine, along with the Shadow cloud gaming machine, which just recently launched here in the US about a month ago. Both of these machines have very similar hardware specs, so I was expecting their benchmark results to be very similar when comparing the two, with only slight deviations. On that note, the Paperspace machine did achieve slightly higher minimum FPS results, while on the flip side, the Shadow machine achieved slightly higher maximum and slightly higher average FPS results. In the end, this essentially boils down to not having a clear-cut winner between the two, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. In terms of the golden standard for gaming at 1080p 60 FPS, both of these machines will easily be able to achieve that, even when having the quality settings all the way up on Ultra. In fact, neither one of these machines dipped below the 60 FPS in the minimum FPS results, and in fact had an average FPS result of actually at or very close to 100 FPS. You could actually turn render scaling down, or turn a couple graphical quality settings down to bump the average FPS results up if you do have a high refresh rate monitor. So that is actually another plus side with these two machines, if you are willing to sacrifice a little bit of graphical fidelity for higher refresh rate, if you do have a monitor that could actually support that. If you only have a 60 hertz monitor, there's no reason to adjust the quality settings below that Ultra preset, along with the render scaling at 100%, simply because you're already achieving at least a minimum of 60 FPS. Moving on to some more budget-focused options for cloud gaming, we have the GPU Plus machine from Paperspace, along with Liquid Sky running in Pro mode. I did attempt to run the Liquid Sky cloud gaming service in gamer mode. However, Rainbow Six Siege constantly crashed the moment I tried to enter a match, and I do think that is in part due to the graphical quality settings that we have for this benchmark that I was running for this video. And at the Ultra settings, it does require more than 4 gigabytes of VRAM, and with the gamer mode from Liquid Sky, they only allot you 2 gigabytes of VRAM, and I think it is that limitation which is causing the game to crash. It seems pretty logical to me. But for the purpose of this video, the gamer mode does not work. I do think that if I crank the settings down far enough, I could probably get the gamer mode to work, but for the purpose of this video, if I had to adjust these quality settings for every game, you wouldn't have a fair comparison between them. So I'll likely do a follow-up video in the near future, so keep your eye out for that, about tweaking the quality settings to make sure that every tier at least has a 1080p 60 FPS experience, and that'll be good for these more gamer or budget-focused options for you. If you want to make sure that you at least get a good 1080p 60 FPS experience, what quality settings you have to use on some of these tiers to achieve that. So moving on and talking solely about the Liquid Sky Pro mode, as well as the GPU Plus machine from Paperspace, we ended up with results that were decent, but not the best. They did have dips anywhere from 39 to 33 FPS, with the GPU Plus machine lagging behind quite a bit behind the Pro mode from Liquid Sky, with an average FPS in the mid to high 50s for these two tiers. So on that note, we definitely didn't achieve the goal of 1080p 60 FPS, but we did achieve decent results. It was definitely playable. At no point did it slow down enough that it wasn't playable, at least from my opinion, because I'm not a guy that plays on a high refresh rate monitor or anything like that. I'm not super competitive. So in terms of playability, it was just as playable as if I was playing locally from my perspective, but it could definitely be better. Which you can definitely notice a little bit in the dips, but it wasn't at the point where it wasn't playable by any stretch of the imagination. However, I do think with a little bit of adjusting those quality settings like I was talking about earlier, we could definitely very easily achieve a 1080p 60 FPS experience. But the Liquid Sky experience is definitely a lot more consistent and should be able to achieve that benchmark goal a lot easier. However, there is still the annoying bug issue that I've detailed in previous videos where Liquid Sky will not engage the gamer mouse mode unless you alt tab to a different program that will engage it, hit the F12 key, and then alt tab back to the game you're playing, and then you can now use the gamer mouse mode, which will make the game actually attach to the game, and instead of just going to the screen and not being able to control your game camera anymore, it'll just go to the edge of the screen. You can't move your camera anymore. It'll actually engage the gamer mouse mode, which will generally lock the cursor itself to the center of the screen, but you can move it side to side to move your camera in the game. This is an annoying bug that's been persistent for about a year now at least, if my memory serves me correctly, and it still has yet to be fixed. It's a relatively simple workaround to do it, but it's still an annoyance. So for the budget focus, I personally would recommend still using Liquid Sky running in Pro mode. But I would install the Parsec software and use Parsec as your streaming client instead of using the Liquid Sky client. All right, so to start to wrap things up for this video, the best cloud gaming service for you is going to depend in part upon a couple factors. If you want the best experience out there, you do have two choices which are very, very comparable and very similar in terms of the final end result. And that is the Paperspace P5000 as well as the Shadow Cloud Gaming Machine. And which service of those two is better for you entirely depends upon how much you play on a monthly basis. If you play around a max of 40 to 45, then the Paperspace option is going to be cheaper for you in the long run. However, if you play more than 45 hours and beyond, if you're more of a hardcore gamer that plays probably every night or maybe most nights a week and every gaming session is at least 2 hours, then the Shadow option is going to look very strong for you as a very viable option that's going to end up saving you money in the long run. If you are a more hardcore gamer, it is still pretty expensive to utilize cloud gaming. Even with $40 a month or even at $30 a month with Paperspace, it does start to add up over a year, but it is still much cheaper than the current ability to buy a gaming machine, especially with the inflated prices of GPU and especially the inflated prices of RAM. If you're looking for the budget option, my personal recommendation is to go with the Liquid Sky Pro mode, but running Parsec as your streaming client. It's the best of both worlds. You have a very good machine for budget. You have to know that when you're coming into things, you're not going to be able to run everything at ultra. You might have to back things off to high or medium, or maybe a mix with some settings at high and some settings at medium to get a decent graphical experience that you're okay with, but to still achieve a 1080p 60 FPS experience. Alright, so that's it for today's video, guys. The rest of this video will just have some gameplay footage from my testing once I get done with this outro, of course. So thanks for watching. If you did like this video and found it helpful or otherwise enjoyable, give it a big like. I greatly appreciate that. Also, if you're not already an existing subscriber, smash that subscribe button. And until next time, Zach out.
One friendly operator remaining.